Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for I believe this is my third installment of celebrating women entrepreneurs. My name is Franklin Rivera, and I'm a digital marketer and music manager. But it's not all about me. It's really about all of you and giving big props to the women entrepreneurs out there in the world. And I am so happy that everybody has jumped online. Please feel free to share it with all your followers by clicking the button on your left of your screen. It says tell a little bird to tell all of your followers, or you can now tell your friends on Facebook so that they can all join in. The purpose of this is to listen to our guest, Dr. Laura Bokar, who is just extraordinary as a person. I met her a long time ago and recently reconnected again through her husband, another great person, and just was very delighted that she decided to come on and join us here and tell us all about her business. So that being said, I need to pull up her bio, and actually joining her is one of her, I believe, clinicians, Cheryl, who will be also speaking
clinical
with us
director.
as well.
Not just clinician, clinical director.
Dear clinical director,
Yeah.
I am so sorry. So clinical
Trust
director.
me. I bow to her almost every day.
I have all the big people in the house. This is
yes,
great.
You do. So look out.
Make me look good. Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about. I have Dr. Bokar's bio here, and it's so extensive. I need to read a little bit about it. I need to read it. I don't have it memorized. So Dr. Laura Bokar is the president and CEO of the Fox Valley Institute, an author, speaker, and an entrepreneur. She's been an individual marital, and family therapist for over 2 decades. And she started the Fox Valley Institute in 2001 with just one therapist. And guess who that was? It was her. So since then, the Fox Valley Institute has grown to a team of 22 and continues to seek highly qualified professionals to expand their services. Some of her accolades are the Business Ledger 2007 Influential Women in Business Award, finalist in the Naperville Chamber of Commerce 2006, 2007, and 2008 Small Business Awards. And if you don't know Naperville, well, Naperville is just the place to be. So to get those accolades is pretty impressive. JC's 2006 Distinguished Service Award in Health and Wellness category, and the Business Ledger 2005 Award for Business Excellence in the Emerging Entrepreneurial Company category. One thing that's really great about Dr. Bokar, she has a strong commitment of giving back to the community with her time, talent, and financial contributions. And she also likes to give back to their profession by donating time to teach and present at high schools, colleges, and university. She stays busy. So I'm just very grateful that you're here online and taking the time out to participate in this. She's also been featured in a special segment for ABC 7 News Chicago entitled Hope and Help for Veterans. And Chuck is a veteran. I am correct, right?
Yes.
And that's her husband. So we thank you from the veteran community for that. She's also spoke on the healing effects that affect veterans can experience by engaging in rapid resolution therapy. She's been a guest on talk show radio and a speaker for many organizations and on various topics. And now she's speaking here. So it can go on and on and on. So thank you. And Cheryl, I was reading a little bit about you. You're passionate about helping people achieve balanced and healthy lives. 20 years of experience providing individual, marital, and family therapy services. Cheryl, now, should I refer to you as Dr. Fromelt or?
Cheryl would be perfect. I'm not a doctor.
Okay, Cheryl. So Cheryl believes everyone has inherent strengths and the ability to produce solutions. So I'm really happy. Her list is very long as well. I'm just very happy both of you taking the time out to be here. So thank you. No, so if anybody out there would like to jump in a live video chat and talk with Dr. Bokar or Cheryl and ask some questions, please feel free to do that, or you can just type your questions in the chat box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. But we're here to talk about becoming an entrepreneur, being a successful entrepreneur, which of course Dr. Bokar is. So Dr. Bokar, can you tell me, first of all, share with us about your journey to becoming an entrepreneur? What motivated you to really start your own practice and grow to this size?
Well, what started it was that I had worked in a few other practices that I really enjoyed working and learned a lot, but I really saw that I wanted to do something different, and that to do that, we really needed people that could work in helping others and being involved in the community in the way that I had envisioned. And Cheryl is one of those people that have been with me from almost from the very beginning, who has built Fox Valley. So when you talk about how did I build it, I can't ever take the credit. That we really had a really strong team that has built Fox Valley, and it's the people, the commitment, their values, that have really built us. So it was really seeing that there was a lack of that in some of the places that I worked. And I wanted to make sure, it's funny, Franklin, when you call me doctor, no one calls me doctor here, because we want to, everybody's valued for who they are and what they do. So whether you have that title or whether you're the business manager or admin, that there's, everybody has a place here, and that no one is really better than the other. We work as a team, and that's one thing that's really made us successful.
I really like that. I really like that. You kind of jumped the gun here, because I was going to ask you some questions kind of surrounding about everything that you just spoke, but I want to move. I don't want to move too fast. So, you know, becoming an entrepreneur is difficult. I mean, you wear a lot of hats, and when you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to open up the doors and I'm going to fill a need. And I mean, what was the most difficult thing about that? What was challenging about it? How did you go about establishing priorities?
Well, I think the one thing that I found is I really didn't walk into this wanting to become an entrepreneur. In fact, I think that title is very interesting, because I think when I think of an entrepreneur, I think of Bill Gates or Richard Branson, and you see all the successful pieces of an entrepreneur, but no one remembers or sees or hears about the time when you were stuffing your own envelopes or emptying out your own trash or doing the interviews or having to do the paperwork. And as you're building up, you're really doing everything. And so an entrepreneur, I was someone who just wanted to make a difference, and didn't really know exactly all how to do that, and have learned as we have grown. And the most frustrating piece of it, I think, is that our passion is really to help and change people's lives. But in the midst of all that, you need to create processes on how to have the work. And I do not like processes. I like having processes, but I do not like creating processes. So to take the time and really have to look at the details and set up priorities and to create the structure is something that it wasn't a gift of mine. And I really needed to get help to do that. Cheryl is much better at doing that. She is blessed because she has both of her talents. She's a great therapist, but she also is great in setting up processes. She has a different mindset than I do.
You know, that's excellent, and I'm glad you kind of mentioned that Cheryl was good at that, because that was kind of my next question, and I was putting the pieces together and thinking that, okay, I'm thinking this is where Cheryl may fit in, and you know, that's a big challenge of entrepreneurs, finding that person that they feel can be a partner in growing their enterprise. So, could you share with us how you and Cheryl met, and then Cheryl, I'd really like to hear from you. What made you say, you know what, this is something I want to get involved in for the long haul?
Why don't you go ahead with that, Cheryl, please?
Well, for years, I practiced alongside Laura. As you mentioned earlier, I have a concentration in marriage and family therapy, individual therapy, as well as working with adolescents 13 and up. So for years, that was my sole focus, working on my clinical skills. And then several years ago, when Laura approached me about the idea of being clinical director, I thought, you know, I think now's the time. I felt like my passion for the clinical work and being able to oversee and ensure that we had quality therapeutic services. And I think initially I wasn't quite sure where that all fit into the business aspect of it. And though I was open to that. And very quickly, I think you have to have an open attitude of learning, of being able to change something that isn't working, but very clearly try to define a process, communicate it, but be open to refining it as you need to go. That has, I think, been very valuable. What worked 3 years ago doesn't necessarily work today, and that could be for a variety of reasons. just the size of our practice has changed. So we've found that that we've had to adapt that way. Some of the therapeutic services that we offer have expanded. And so we have had to learn to change processes as a result of that. So I think just always willing to be open and be ready to be adaptable and flexible to whatever the need of our population is.
You know, that is really great that you said that about the flexibility. And just 1 second, if anybody would really like to jump in and ask any questions live, please. This is for your benefit to help you if you're a starting entrepreneur looking to grow your business. Let's take it from people who have built a very successful business. You know, it's not often you get to speak with somebody frontline that has done that. So please, anybody feel free to jump in. But you know, Cheryl, this morning I was speaking to somebody at an event that basically said that is one thing that causes a lot of businesses not to grow. The lack of flexibility and the lack of adapting to the change. So obviously the practice has grown to from 1 to 22. At what point, either one of you can answer, did you feel, you know what, we need to hire some more people? How did you go about identifying those people and then changing your processes? Loaded question.
You know, that's a very good question. You know, I think if you move from when you are a small practice or a small organization, you are able to surround yourself with, I think, initially people who have a like-minded way of thinking of you, who have a similar vision, and it's much easier to nurture that with a very small group. Obviously, there's less variables involved. And when, I guess for lack of a better word, all of our initial hard work, commitment to quality therapy and marketing really started to take off in the community, we saw that the demand was so great that it was time to start looking at adding clinicians to our practice. So that was an interesting process for us because we were committed as a group to maintaining the climate and the values that we had as a small group, and it became difficult to add just en masse clinicians. So we would take up to a year at times to add one clinician.
Wow.
So that takes patience. And I think it really, really takes, and this is where Laura has always been so great, a commitment to maintaining the core values that the practice started with, that she was so passionate about creating and instilling and maintaining. So our growth has been small, or small, not small. It has been slow in building. And so now here we are all these years later, but many practices can just look at, hey, let's just get as many people in as possible without really recognizing the impact that that could have on the internal climate. So I think really a commitment to staying true to the vision, as well as to the climate that we have within the office, the dynamic and the relationship that we have between the therapists was very important. And so, you know, for those looking to build and grow a practice, I think it isn't just about how quickly can we cross the finish line, but really, are we running the race the right way?
Wow. You know, I had like
does such a great job.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, this is amazing. I had like a list of questions, and now all these things are coming up that I think are so important to cover as growing a business. You mentioned, you keep talking about climate, and then you talked about slow growth. So that brings two questions to mind. I'm thinking about your entire interview process when you want to bring somebody into the practice. So I'm guessing that part of the interview process has to make sure that they line up with the values and the vision that your business has. So that'd be interesting to talk about that. And I'm thinking that during that process, there were some times that you maybe had to forego hiring somebody. The second thing is, how do you get through those difficult times of saying, I need to grow, I'm at capacity, but I'm not identifying the right people? That could be a difficult time. So can you talk about both the the hiring, as well as how do you get through those difficult times when you need to expand, but you have to be patient?
But I'll just jump in from the start. It's changed from when
Okay.
it started to now. Is that I think was it? I think I just kind of did the initial interviewing in the beginning, and then it just became too much because we had so many resumes coming in or Vitas coming in. And so as we grew, we created a whole new process because there was some hiccups that occurred that we needed to change, or we hired the wrong person and we wanted to try to stop that. So I think the process we have in now that we do it now is working best. But what it is doing is really slowing the process down because we have such a strong filter because we want the right people to keep the culture the same. So it's really we receive a resume or a vita and it comes in and we have one of the therapists do a phone interview. And then with the phone interview, with that, we have a list of questions and some things that we identify that we want in the practice as well. And then from there, if they pass that, then they go to a 2-therapist interview and 2 therapists then interviews them. And if they pass that, they go to the group. So the whole group gets to decide whether this person will fit in our culture or not, because all of us have different specialties and one of us are going to catch something if the other one didn't. And that has been the case. There's been one time we were really in desperate need, but there was 2 therapists that said no and the rest said yes, and we should have followed the no. So it's just those 2 had caught something that the rest of us hadn't. So it's a great process now. Now our accountant isn't so happy with us at times because he's like, fill the office. But we're so dedicated to the quality of care, and we are known for the quality of care. It's more about that than the income.
Thank you very much, Laura, for bringing that up and sharing that with us. I got a little distracted because somebody just asked us a question, if you can see it on your screen. What makes you qualified on the subject of building a $1 million business?
I think what makes me qualified is I've built $1 million plus. Our team has built $1 million plus dollar practice. So it makes me very qualified that we have been $1 million practice probably for probably 8 years now. We have had that kind of income, but it's been a steady where we could probably be at 2 million or 3 million if we hired more people, but we won't do that. So the qualification, we have built it from nothing to $1 million plus.
Wow. Well, hey, Dr. Bokar, Laura, Cheryl, if you'd like to share a link to your practice, somebody's asking for a link so they can, look at your practice and possibly have an interest. If you'd like to share that and type it in and share it with everybody. But this is a clinical. Okay, so I have no idea. So we have somebody that just joined us. Dr. Bokar runs something called the Fox Valley Institute out of Naperville, Illinois. Started with just herself as one practitioner, has grown to over 22 practitioners, and as she said, has been well over $1 million business for over 8 years now. Has just been on television, radio, involved with veterans. Her resume probably just took about 10 minutes for me to read, so I don't want to take up another 10 minutes, but feel free to go to her website. And what is that website again, Dr. Bokar? It is
www.f as in Fox, V as in Valley Institute.com. So do I send a message with that? Do you want me to type that?
Yeah, you can do that. So there it is, www.svinstitute.com, if you'd like to check out her website. So we're talking about how to build a $1 million practice or business with somebody that's actually done it. And we've already covered quite a few interesting things, talking about culture, talking about having steady growth, not hiring too fast. And as we know, I've coming to, there you go. There you go.
No, I spelled it wrong.
We'll get it.
I'm on the side here. Here we go. Is that right? There we go. Yeah. Got it.
All right. So one thing that I think is very, as an entrepreneur and building a business, you have to wear several hats. And I think that to a certain extent, being a woman entrepreneur, you may have to tend to wear a few more hats than we men. Now, I may be generalizing,
Mhm.
but I think it's safe to say that if you're an entrepreneur that wants to have a family and all these other things, and now you have quite a bit to juggle there. And at times you may be stressed with running a business and also, keeping a happy family life as well.
Mhm.
Was that a challenge of yours? And if it was a challenge, what type of support system did you have in place, or did you have to deal with that, and how?
I think it's always a challenge for everyone. And back when I started Fox Valley Institute, I was also starting or in the middle of my doctorate program. So I was getting my doctorate. I was building Fox Valley Institute and trying to have a healthy marriage as well. And it can be very difficult if you're not mindful and intentional about it. So the one thing that is helpful to remember is to do what you have a passion for, but to keep boundaries around it so you can keep the rest of your lives healthy, because it is hard. It was hard.
Mm-hmm.
I always say Chuck earned the doctorate just as well as I did. He put a lot of love into it and patience.
Wow. So outside of Chuck, and if for those of you that don't know, Chuck is her husband. What other type of support system helped you to navigate through the difficult times of running a business?
One, the team here was very helpful because the one thing that we stress is the support of each other. So whether it's, in fact, Cheryl and I are so, it's so important to us to have people work a certain amount of hours, but not go over. There were some people doing some crazy schedules and really telling them to stop. We had to tell them to stop working so much because we want to practice what we preach. Now, that's very unusual for corporations to say stop working because it does affect the bottom line, but we want long-term and stability. So the team was very important to me for that and carried some of the work that I had to let go of while I was in the program. I also was very intentional about getting a consultant for my clinical work and for my professional life, as well, and as an executive coach. So, yeah,
Wow.
very intentional about my mentors and my support systems. And you have to be.
That's interesting. I run into quite a few business owners that talk about having a professional coach. And a lot of times I think as entrepreneurs, we think, hey, look, I'm starting a business. Why do I need a coach? I'm already strapped for trying to bring in money, and I'm going to pay for a coach or a mentor or, what qualifies them to help me out. So that'd be interesting. Can you speak about some ways that maybe your coach helped you?
I think I want to mention my consultant because she's the one that kept me really sane through the process. Because there's sometimes, especially as an entrepreneur and as Cheryl and I have found, and that's what I love about Cheryl's support, is when you're in the position we're in, you don't have a lot of people you can go and talk to about this and do it well and do it ethically and do it professionally. So to have a consultant to be able, or Cheryl or someone that you trust, and to be able to just be real about it. I'm really frustrated, or I'm really sad, or I'm really angry. So you can just be yourself and then kind of just process it through and even find some solutions if you need to. So that just keeps you mentally strong. And more the executive coach that I have, she is really helping me with taking some risks and really helping me build as a leader. And sometimes when you're starting something, it's hard for you to let go because it's your baby, and to let go and have someone else do it and maybe not do it the way that you would want it to do. You really need to it really is helping other people grow and letting go of things that you may see differently, but they can do it much better if you allow them to.
Thank you. I think that's great advice. I think a lot of us probably need to take that to heart to start doing that. Even
It's
yours
hard.
truly.
It's hard. But just to watch as Cheryl and I are able to let go of things and watch people really grow and want to develop in new areas, I think that's what excites us. I'm speaking for both of us, but it excites us to see people find their passion in different areas besides the clinical piece. We have someone who loves to do the interviewing of interns, and we have interns that are here from the universities, and to really help them grow. We have someone who loves doing the interviewing of therapists coming in, and so to watch them develop their interviewing skills. We have a great child psychologist, just to watch her really mentor people when it works to kids. But if Cheryl and I would be so controlling in the sense that we want it our way and kind of structured, and it's you only consult with us, I don't think it would grow and develop and flourish like it has been and have the reputation that it has.
Well, if I can just jump in for a second on that.
Sure. Go ahead.
Something that we haven't spoken about yet, which is interesting for Laura and I to watch this emerge in our particular field, is this idea of marketing. Mm-hmm. I think traditionally we all think of marketing as a staple of business and corporate America. But to understand a little bit of the evolution of our field, when Laura and I first got in the field, people weren't marketing. Yeah, so many of us were in community mental health. Group private practice wasn't what it is now. A lot of times it was just a single person years ago who put out their shingle outside their door. And so we go back to this idea of being flexible and adaptable. And one of the things that I think Laura did a great job helping spearhead, and we all really understood, is that we now have to market in our field as psychologists, as master's level therapists, and it was very different. It's a different mindset for many of us who have been in the field. And so I think when we think of, growing a business, you've got to market, but you've got to market in a way that makes sense for your the population that you're serving. So we've had to figure out, what does marketing look like for therapists? It's going to look very different for a therapy office than it will be a company who sells copy machines. So we've had to be willing to consult people who know how to market. We've had to be willing to go outside our comfort zone and do maybe what, we were never trained to when we were coming into this field on how to market. I mean, we weren't business people. So I think it's always being willing to resource yourself with the right people who have the right expertise. So even, we've had to learn how to market. We've had to learn to do it in a way that I think it makes sense for the people that we serve, as well as the therapists, a way that feels like it has dignity and serves and the people that are struggling seek out our services. So marketing is a big part of it. And like I said, we've known it's always been a part of corporate America, but it's a bigger and bigger part of the service industry as well.
I'm really happy that you brought that point up. And I would be delighted to sometime in the future have you back to talk about just that subject, because I think when you talk about professionals, people that are in a professional space, physicians, a practice such as yours, attorneys, things like that, they tend to shy away from the marketing and really have no idea how to approach it, either for HIPAA reasons or things like that. So it would really be nice to have a separate conversation at another time, because I think being able to share what you've done would be very helpful to a lot of people in those professions and how you approach the marketing. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Because you're developing now, Franklin, a thing called a presentation called The Art of Connecting, because people have forgotten how to connect. And it's so important.
Wow.
And it's not about going out and selling, it's about going out and connecting. And the question's always, how can I help you? Not what can you give me? And it's really been a wonderful process to see how that really builds the relationships and not just have someone buy your product. So it's something that I think is worthwhile, and we would love to share that at any time.
Yeah, is that something that's already developed, or it's in development stages,
but pretty much have it down.
Well, we don't even call it marketing. Here we call it relationship building. And it may just seem like semantics, but I think this applies to whether you're in a service industry like we are, or in corporate America. It helped us switch our mindset to realize we weren't selling something. We were building a relationship with people who we truly felt would benefit from what we had to offer. And I think for many of us who are just so relationship oriented, that was a very helpful switch, but it's one where I talk with my clients who are business owners or are in big business. And I think it's an important distinction, and it allows you, I think, to take a different approach to what we traditionally just think as marketing. It isn't necessarily selling ourselves, but it's building a relationship. It feels more organic.
I think that's great, and I think that's exactly in line with what probably most marketing should be nowadays. I mean, we talk about social marketing, social media. It's supposed to be social, which it seems that's exactly what you're doing. So when you're ready it'd be great to see if there's something we can put together and gain some visibility for this program that you've developed. I think it'd be super helpful to most people out there. Anybody agree? Everybody's so silent. Nobody's asking me any questions or anyway. So we'll do that. I think that's awesome. Hey, Lisette said yes. That would be awesome. Thank you, Lisette. I appreciate it.
And it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun when you want to go out and connect with people than if you want to go out and market.
It is. It is. I mean, I've seen you downtown sometimes, and that's the community of people. You know, that I'm involved in that veteran network, and building those relationships is just so huge. It's I can't even put it in words. It just feels good. So I love what you're doing. That is great. Thank you. There are so many different directions I can go there, but I really want to stay on course. Last thing, and then we're going to kind of transition now that we're into the holiday season, and we're going to get a little bit of a insight from Dr. Bokar and Cheryl around a certain subject in the holidays. But the last question I would like to ask is, what is the best advice that you can give to an entrepreneur, somebody setting out on their own? What has been the one thing that you sit back and say, you know what, I'm glad I did that. That's why we are successful.
I think the one piece of advice would make sure that if you're going to start a business, to be passionate about it. Be passionate. Your passion will push through and help you through the things you don't know, don't understand, and it will help you find the people who do. When you have a passion, it will shine, it will just flourish, and it will unfold. There's many times that I have been in tears and wanted to give up early on, but it was my passion that kept going through that. I wanted to be able to be with a group of people, with a team, not just me, with a team of people that would really go out and want to change lives and have people live happier in a shorter period of time than 12 years of therapy. So I would say make sure it's your passion, because if it's not your passion, it will be difficult to stick through the difficult time. It'll be easier to get out.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for that. Do you have a blog or anything where you write these things and share your experiences? Because if so, I'd like to share that with people, or tell them, go to your website.
We do have a blog. It's not always about this, but we do have a blog on our website, so people can go there and.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind typing in your website one more time and sharing it with everybody, feel free to go to Dr. Bokar website and read their blog and hear about them and learn. And we've had a lot of great topics that we've covered, but one thing I would like to transition over into, and I asked Dr. Bokar and Cheryl to speak on this, was the holiday season, so we can get a little bit of her expertise. And we all have heard that the holiday season can sometimes be a very difficult time for some people. You think so, Cheryl?
Difficult, really? No. Where'd you hear that, Lynn?
No. I don't know. Let's all just be happy and sing Kumbaya. But I mean, okay, so let's start with that. Has that been your experience? Do you see an influx of challenging times, whether it's in maybe switching a career, or people starting to reflect on the past year and they say, you know what, I really don't want to do this. I'm not happy in my job, or this is a difficult time. Somebody maybe have passed away. Is that something that you do see a rise around the holiday season?
I'm going to say one thing, then I'll pass it off to Cheryl. But I had someone call me who I hadn't seen in a year and said, Laura, it's Christmas time again, so family's coming. I need an appointment. so it's usually some family issues arise, at least for people that I see, that they want to check up, tune in, and what can I do to handle the family when they come in. So
yeah, that's a good segue.
Okay.
I don't, what I have seen in terms of trending over the years is I get over the holiday season, I get a large influx of returning clients. So these are clients that I have seen over the years. I no longer actively see, but they come back in for check-ins. So we all experience a large influx of returning clients. But then as a practice in general, as far as new clients, we actually get more new clients coming in after the first of the year than they do right in the thick of the holidays, because they're overwhelmed in the holidays and they're stressed and they cannot add one more thing. It's usually after decompress from the holidays and they're thinking, wow, that did not go well. And they start revisiting how they've experienced what is supposed to be a joyous time. And they usually will reach out. Holidays can often just put a spotlight, if you will, on stressors that are already there. So it could be relationship issues, it could be self-care issues, it could be living a life built on unreasonable expectations, family relationships, loss of loved ones. Those are all issues that are there day in, day out, but the holidays tend to really put a spotlight on those.
Wow. Wow. You know, without getting too specific, what do you think that it is that drives? No, let me back up. What do you think it is that inhibits or stops people from wanting to make that phone call to come in and
Well,
see
I
you?
think there we're talking about a larger issue, and just in terms of preconceived notions or a bias about what therapy means. I think years and years and years ago, there was definitely a perception that you just handled your own problems. You kept problems within the family. So we didn't air our dirty laundry. We didn't seek other counsel. That meant that perhaps you were weak, or that you were crazy. We're talking about very old, I think, semantics. That has been changing, fortunately, over the years. And I think more and more, I may see a client in downtown Naperville, and I would say maybe 10 years ago, I don't know, 10 to 20% of those clients would have even acknowledged me. Now I have many of them, because they're comfortable doing so, will come up to me, they'll greet me, and they'll introduce me as their therapist to many of their family members or friends. So I think now people understand that it is a strength to identify an area that you're struggling with. And again, going back to what I said earlier in terms of being able to resource yourself. You resource yourself with a physical therapist, with a personal trainer, with a life coach, with a financial advisor, with an accountant. This is just another way in which people are more and more accepting is a great resource.
Wow. That is a big change. Gosh, my head is just spinning. I'm trying to think. Okay, what's my next question? uh, so, so what you're saying is you're saying that more people tend to come in after the
New
holidays.
clients.
A lot of
New
these
clients
things
do. We see just a ton of returning clients because they've already established the connection with us. They've already had the relationship with their therapist. They've already experienced the benefit of it. So it's a lot easier to make that call. Like Laura just said, it's the holidays, and it's often new clients or clients seeking counseling for the first time. It's after the holidays because, as I said, the holidays really amplify existing stressors.
The suicide rate is higher
Okay.
after the holidays, not during.
Yes.
The suicide
Say
rate
that
is
again?
higher after the holidays than during the holidays.
Yes.
Really? So is that a common misconception that it's higher during the holidays than? Because I've always heard it was during the holidays,
No, it's
not
usually
after
the
the holidays.
holidays that may have triggered or presented some new issues that push people over the edge.
Wow. Well, you know what? Let me go to another question then. And this is kind of backpedaling. What made you interested in your profession in doing this? Did you just wake up one day and say, hey, this is what I want to do, or I love to help people?
I think
what
anyone who
was it?
is in the helping field, so whether that be a nurse, a doctor, a therapist, a lawyer, I think we all organically, if we really look back at our life, we can identify common experiences. And it could be, I was always interested in why people did what they did, or people, my friends would always come to me and they would always talk to me about what was going on. They always said that I was a good listener. I just think there are certain personality and character traits that lend themselves to any field. I mean, we can see that in the field of engineering or in accounting. Certainly, it's no different in a helping profession. But for me personally, actually, I actually had an experience that I think really solidified my desire to get into the field. And growing up, my family worked and paired with an organization called Catholic Charities, which is well known here in the suburbs. And we would bring into our home unwed pregnant teenage women. And this was starting when I was 13 and 14 and 15. And, I saw these young girls who were sad, who were scared, who were disenfranchised from their family, who were in usually very unhealthy relationships with the baby's father. And I, number one, saw what we were doing to help in our small way as very impactful. But connecting with the pain, living with someone like that is very different than hearing a story. And it just, for me, solidified the fact that I wanted to be a part of a change that happened that allowed people to not get into situations like these young women were in, that they were internally resourced to be able to make decisions that they could feel good about.
Wow. Is that usually a pretty long process to get people to change, or is it pretty much independent upon the person?
It is dependent. I mean, you get people at every stage. You can get someone who comes in because, their husband or their wife or their parent told them to come in. And so you may be working on a little bit of resistance to begin with. But we have certainly found that there is a direct correlation to if someone is able to acknowledge the significant amount of discomfort that they're in and understanding that what they're doing isn't working for them anymore, you have an immediate buy-in to a willingness to change. The old saying, to keep doing the same thing and expect different results is the definition of crazy. So it depends on how comfortable you are and whether or not you're willing just to acknowledge that what you're doing is not beneficial.
In the spirit of transparency, and I believe in transparency, I actually went to counseling at a very difficult time when I was going through a corporate downsizing. And personally, I didn't think I needed it. It wasn't until I was actually there that I was like, wow, this is really helpful. And I think that it really changed my whole perspective on having a therapist. And I think that it also helped others because I was able to share my experience and I guess kind of break those barriers or those fears that people had about speaking to somebody. So take it from me personally. I think it's well worth it to seek somebody. You may think that you have all the answers, and just sometimes a different perspective from people that actually are doing that and helping people all the time is well worth it. So, thank you so much for what you do, because I know it helped me out quite a bit in going through a job transition. We have a question from Lisette. She said, how do you put how passionate you are about your business and helping individuals and know there is a need? However, the individuals never even notice the need. Do you understand that?
If I'm understanding that correctly, it's kind of the disconnect between us wanting to help people, but people either not recognizing they need it or are being willing to accept it.
Yes.
Well, I think,
Yes.
that goes back to what I had said earlier. The time that we're in now makes that very thing much easier, because I feel in general, people are much more open to seeking outside help and guidance, it has shifted for us over the years. I would say 10 years ago, if we were really to look at it, referrals and the amount of people just coming in on their own seeking therapy of their own volition was far less than it is now. But fortunately, I just think the cultural change that we have in terms of seeking assistance outside of ourselves and not going with the old school mentality that you just deal with your own problems and you don't tell, much less tell anyone else, not even a friend, about your problems. I mean, we all think of it, back in the day, we could say, oh, no, our parents told us that we should never talk about what happens at home with other people, friends, much less going to another professional. So I think that just has organically become easier for us to do. We were always kind of sitting here ready and waiting, and it was having, folks just come to us. And such a big part of our business now in terms of new clients is referrals. I talked earlier about marketing, and that certainly has its place and a significant value. But at the end of the day, you and I both know what changes the very thing that Lisette asked is that when you have a personal friend come to you and is willing to be transparent, just like you were, Franklin, and say, I got to tell you, you've been sharing some of the things that you're going through. I personally, went and saw someone, and it was life-changing. When you have someone make that connection with you and speak to a personal experience, I just think it makes it a lot easier for someone to reach out.
And sometimes people aren't ready. There's a thing called readiness. And when people are ready, they will find and they will hear something different. They'll read an article, they'll hear a presentation, and then all of a sudden some part of them will be touched, and then they'll be ready. So, and to try to talk someone into being ready, you share the experience, open, but don't try to tell someone they need it.
Yeah, that makes me think of when I in the first Gulf War, I started smoking in the first Gulf War, and I remember, and I don't smoke now. I've been smoke free for, I don't know, my wife will know, and I know she's very thankful. But I remember people telling me, you got to quit, you have to quit, and it's just like, oh, just leave me alone. And it wasn't until I was ready that I actually did, So that's a very interesting point. Do you notice a difference, though? If there's any men still left in the room, I hope there are. Yes, there are. Have you noticed a difference between the willingness of men to seek out help versus women? And if so, is there some advice you can give to the men out there?
I think we all have definitely seen a dramatic increase in the number of men who are now seeking their own individual counseling. For years, as a marriage and family therapist, I've been practicing for almost 25 years. I, by and large, saw men through the process of marital or couple counseling. And I'll be honest, usually it was the wife or the fiance or the girlfriend dragging them in. And that has dramatically changed over the years. I think as big business and corporations are making it easier, even from that aspect, for men to seek help by having EAPs and their own, being resourced internally, different aspects of HR. So I think it started there, and again, just the overall culture has changed in terms of allowing men and women to embrace both aspects of themselves. Women being able to embrace more of traditional male traits, and men being able to embrace more of traditional female traits, which is, of course, relationship building and seeking help and talking about what they're feeling. So I have a large percentage of my caseload, adult men who are coming in to deal with the stressors of being perhaps a provider, of trying to redefine what being a man is, trying to understand what is the best way to help raise a son to become the kind of man that works in today's day and age, because that's very different than what it was 25 or 50 years ago.
And there is a shift because there probably 5 or 6 years ago, men tend to want it to call therapy consulting. They were coming in for consulting. It was never called therapy. It was called consulting. And you can call it whatever you like. It will be consulting. It will be therapy. Depends on the insurance. If you want the insurance to pay for it, we need to call it counseling. But over the years, they've even shifted to that they're really wanting to come in and do their own work, which is exciting.
Really? Wow. So, oh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you so much for your answer. I just had to send out a quick update on the topic to let everybody know that we switched the topic from how to build $1 million business or practice to uh, emotional challenges during the
It's all
holidays.
about.
So I wanted, yeah, people are jumping in and going, "Wait a minute, is this how you?" I need to go to a. Well, hey, you might have to go for counseling or therapy to build $1 million business. And actually, from our last discussion, Dr. Bokar and Cheryl shared with us about having. Someone said you can change the title. Well, thank you, Coach Nori. Um, I didn't want to get kicked out of the room if I tried to change the title. So much has changed with Blab evolving. But anyway, they share the importance of having an executive coach and mentors and everything like that when they built their practice, which has been well over $1 million for over 8 years now. So, but we did want to touch on the holidays and emotional challenges during the holidays. And just to briefly recap, very interesting fact was that a lot of people tend to seek their help after the holidays, or they have current patients or clients or come in during the holidays so that they can help deal with the stressors of the holidays. So that was very, very interesting. Is there anything on the top of your mind that both of you would like to? Okay, what is the fastest way how to build $1 million business in 24 hours? Find a genie in a bottle.
I don't know. Asking the wrong woman.
Yeah. If you weren't here earlier, it was a very good discussion how slowly and deliberately they built their practice by making a lot of the right decisions along the way. So we'll be doing this again. I think Evan Taxi. We'll be doing this again in the future. But is there anything that you would like to share with us, Cheryl or Dr. Bokar or Laura, as everybody in your practice knows you as kind of some final words, either from your area of expertise in the entrepreneur world or in the clinical therapy world? Is that the right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That you'd like to share with all of us?
Well, I guess I'll ask you, Franklin. I know one of the things that you wanted to address was maybe specifically some of the things that make the holidays very difficult. So we could talk about that, or we could end cap it with more of the business aspect of it. So whichever way you want that to end.
Well, let's talk about the holidays. What are some of the things that make the holidays most difficult? Because they're upon us, and I think this would be a nice information for those people that are online right now.
Well, I think we can look at the stressors in two different ways. We can look at internal stressors. So in other words, those are the stressors that we kind of generate and bring about ourselves. And then there's other stressors that are more external. So those are just more situational and environmental. So I'll just very quickly talk about some of the internal stressors. So in other words, these are the way we think about things in the holidays that end up making us tense. So one belief can be, I can't get it all done. So if we think about the holidays, we think that we've got shopping to do, we've got traveling to do, we have house decorating to do, as well as just trying to live our day-to-day life. So just even thinking about, oh, it's too much, I can't get it all done is stressful. The idea that I can't afford this, I can't afford Christmas, and this is going to put me in debt. Obviously, just thinking that is stressful. How about the idea of, no, this isn't how I thought it should be. This isn't what I think Christmas should, or the holiday season, be like. Another internal stressor, so in other words, how we think about the season is, I haven't accomplished anything this year. We all look at January 1st as that magical date that our entire world is going to change. And then, we tend to reflect upon that entire year that we've just had during the holiday season. So these are just thoughts and beliefs internally that I think predispose us to not enjoy the holidays. And then if we look at very quickly external stressors, so in other words, these are things outside of our control. We look at crowds, long lines. I'm not a fan of those at all, which is why I do a lot of online shopping.
Online.
Yeah. We look at just the fact that we're having to spend money and we have to, gift shop. We can remember loved ones that we've lost, and we can be sad thinking about experiencing the holidays without them. We have to see a lot of family. We have to see certain relatives that sometimes we anticipate that being difficult for us. And then there's often a lot of long distance traveling during the holidays. And so, those obviously can be very stressful as well. So I think there's just a handful of things that everyone can do to help approach the holidays, I suppose, in a different way. And I think first and foremost, everyone really needs to find the meaning in the season. We talk about that a lot, but we get caught up in the commercialism, in the consumerism, or of the season. And so find whatever meaning that is, whether that's spiritual or whether that's community based, the idea of just giving back at a local food pantry or a homeless shelter, however that may be. And that's for each individual to decide. I think you have to really set reasonable expectations for yourself. We're not all going to be Martha Stewart, nor should we even attempt to be. I think redefining what is good enough. We often will find that we don't need perfect, but good enough can be pretty darn satisfying. Mm-hmm. I think, setting budgets. So instead of thinking that, you've got to spend so much money, I think you do what makes sense. And that's in keeping more with finding the meaning in the season. It isn't about how big the gift is. I think being mindful and being in the moment. So instead of thinking about the million things you have to do, you just allow yourself to do one thing at a time. Be in the moment and really do all that you're able to do right this very second. I just think the last two things that are worth mentioning is, schedule memorable activities. Research shows obviously that it's experiences that bring satisfaction and happiness, not things. So, be mindful about trying to do memorable activities during the holiday season. And then last, you got to look at the idea of self-care. Self-care is a broad term, but in general, it's just giving yourself permission to say yes to yourself. So whether that be in the midst of all of it, to read a book, to go to lunch with a friend, to meet someone for coffee, or to sit in front of the TV and do absolutely nothing. So, self-care is an important part of it, but you've got to be willing to say yes to yourself by setting reasonable expectations of what you need to perform and do during the holidays in order to do that.
That is some great advice. I am trying to type all this in. So self-care and find the reason for the season.
Reasonable expectations, find the meaning in the season, budget. Just only do one thing in the moment.
Budget. I think that does put a lot of stress on people that feel the need to buy the presents and make the children, everybody happy. And then, that's interesting because I forgot where it was years ago that I think a lot of things that we tend to do are with the expectation of a certain response from the people who are doing it for. And I think that if you go into something without expecting that response, mm-hmm. you're actually doing it because you want to and not seeking a response. If you tell someone, hey, I love you, and you're hoping that they're going to say, I love you back, and they don't, then all of a sudden your feelings are hurt, mm-hmm. And that just made me think about that. I remember one year we just decided we weren't going to give any presents during the season and that it was just going to be time together. And I tell you what, even down to the children, they really, really enjoyed it. It was an eye opener for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if you think about it, the three variables that equate to happiness, there's three, and it's not to make it simple, but there can be stated simply. One is connecting, so that's the experience. Two is growing, so making sure that you're doing something that's helping people grow, and within the experience, you can be growing. And then giving back, right? So contribution. So connecting, growing, and contribution are the three variables that equate to happiness. And if people can have those three, they will feel fulfilled. But too many times we get lost in the stuff and our focus is being different. So,
wow. We could just go on and on talking about all of this stuff. And because I just think that's great. I think that's probably why it goes back to a lot of the character of your practice and how you wanted to build a practice. And I can see that why it's been so successful, because you've kept those values close to heart, and it's something that you're actually practicing, not only personally but also professionally. I think that's great. You look like you want to say something.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. I'm just listening attentively.
Okay. No, it's true. I was recently I started coaching at the high school in Oswego, and since I've done that, I've posted a lot of pictures and everything, and I had a few of my classmates from the academy reach out to me and say, "Hey, I want to do that. How are you doing that? Doesn't that take up a lot of your day?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it does. It takes up 3 to 4 hours out of my work day, every day, 20 hours a week." I said, "But the thing is, when you find the joy, or you see the joy of those kids winning an event, and where they're called by a college and they're like, oh, coach really helped me. I mean, it is totally worth it. And it makes all that hustle and bustle and the things and just really not that important. And now it's become actually a non-negotiable item, that if something's going to interfere with my time to give back to these kids, then I don't want to do it.
Yep.
It gives a whole new meaning to life. So I guess that's kind of in line with what you were just saying. Am I?
Yeah.
Great.
It's connecting, right? What you just described for you is connective, it's growing, and it's giving back. So it's a great real life example. Just breathe life into what Laura just said.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, everybody. We're at the end of our 1 hour, and please feel free to look up Dr. Laura Bokar, Fox Valley Institute, and Cheryl at their website, which is www.fvinstitute.com.
Even I spelled
Okay,
it.
I'm typing it in there. I am going to change the title back before I end our recording, so that we can have the recording saved the way that we would like it to. But please feel free to listen to the replay on how to build $1 million business with Dr. Laura Bokar, as well as how to deal with the emotional challenges of the holidays. Feel free to go to her website, read about her, contact their practice if you are in the area, or even if you're not in the area. I suppose. I don't know if you'll jump on a jet plane and visit anybody. But,
some people
thank you.
So
Thank you so much for joining us. I know you're very busy. It was very helpful, and hopefully we'll be able to get on again and do this sometime in the near future.
that would be great.
All right. Thank you, Franklin.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining in.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining in with Dr. Laura Bokar at Fox Valley Institute. And hey, follow me on Twitter, watch the replay, and I will be on again soon. Hey, that's all for now. If anybody wants to give me a shout out or jump in, feel free. I'm changing this title. All right. I tell you what, Blab has changed a lot since I last been on here.